You should have received, or members of the media would have received at least the media release announcing Telstra Ventures investment this morning in vArmour. So if you haven't got it, let me know. You probably would have seen it reported in the US overnight as well. So there's a fair bit of coverage around the investment. So today we have a few spokespeople to talk through the announcement. We've got Marcus from our Ventures business. Please feel free to have a look at the menu as well, because we'll get through a little discussion, but we'll have our hosts serve us lunch as we discuss today. So we'll keep it fairly casual and have lunch as we're going. Keep on going. That's yeah. So Marcus will open up with a few comments from our Ventures business, and we'll talk a little bit about the reasons why we've invested. Jeremy from GES, and of course we've also got Keith here from vAmour to say a few words as well. So I'll open up with Marcus.
Sure, thank you. And you would like to stand up?
If you like, yeah. Whatever you prefer, whatever you're more comfortable with.
I need to stand up.
Project the voice.
Alright, so I'm quite softly spoken, so if people can't hear me, please let me know. So Marcus Bartram from Telstra Ventures. I thought I'd kind of give a couple of minutes on a little bit around what we do, but also kind of, how did we find vArmour and what do we like about them, and then let the guys talk about the detail and what we do, because I'm not a technical expert, but it did a little bit of cover. So Telstra Ventures was set up sort of 4.5 years ago, and we've probably spent 4 years looking at different companies in the cyber security sector, and we've made a bunch of investments in there today. Imperium, Telesign, Gorilla and Elastica. And it was really clear to us that there was an emerging problem, or there's a problem in that it's very difficult to secure a data center, and especially a virtualized data center or a cloud data center. And equally, customers were starting to, and enterprise customers were starting to use cloud and virtualized data centers for their sort of core applications. And historically, if someone is able to get into a data center, hack a data center, it then becomes very easy to sort of transverse that data center. So if they break into an application or a server or something else, then they can kind of get anywhere inside an enterprise. So it's a very obvious weak spot and a very difficult thing to secure. So as we were searching in the market, we actually came across the vAmour through a bunch of different channels. So existing venture investors, some customers, some of our partners, and some of our own research said you should have a look at this market and you should have a look at vAmour. And sort of what we do and what we're looking for are two things. We're looking for great world-class teams, and we're looking for great world-class technology. If you look at and Keith appreciates that. If you look at vAmour from a team point of view, like the heritage and the founders, the two guys from NetScreen, you've got two ex-CEOs of Palo Alto, which is a big listed security company, on the board. You've got a former COO from Cisco on the board. They've got an amazing CEO and team leads, and Keith, who I think is the only guy I've met who can talk from strategy to detail on technology and back up. The team is incredibly impressive and lots of depth, so they ticked sort of the box at that level. And in terms of great product and world-class product, when we spoke to a lot of customers and competitors in the market, what we saw and what we heard from customers is that these guys are really adding a tremendous amount of value to those customers. They're changing the economics and they're able to secure a data center. You can see traffic and things that you couldn't see before, and you can really start to secure that environment. And they had some pretty impressive customers. Now, I don't know which customers I can talk about, which ones I can't, so I'll err on the side.
So name them all.
But I know there's in excess of 160 customers in there. They definitely had US government agencies, customers in the top 10 big banks in the world, big retailers, big healthcare providers. So these guys are very smart, effective buyers of technology and cyber security technology, and they're all very complementary to what the company's doing. So from our point of view, what we liked about them is we saw a great opportunity to invest in a company, but also to bring that team and that product into the Australian market with Telstra for Telstra's customers, because we can see the same problems here. So I can talk a little bit more about what they do, but maybe do you want to do questions as we go, or what do you want to do?
Well, let's hand over to Jeremy.
Right.
I think we're going to do Keith first.
Okay.
So, like I said, happy to take any questions on any and all of that, and more on the venture side and whatever else we're doing. But maybe if I let Keith chat and talk about the company, a little bit more on the product, and we'll come back to it.
So as you've seen in the media release, Keith joins us from the US. He's vArmour's Vice President of Strategic Markets. So thanks.
Thank you very much. I will also stand up.
Sorry to set a precedent.
No, it's perfect. I enjoy standing up. So I'm going to do is just make sure I've got this. So first off, I want to thank all of you for coming today, and thank our friends at Telstra who've been such exceptional hosts to us the whole time. I have a special place in my heart for Australia. It's another country that knows that words should have U's in them, like vArmour. I'm Canadian, so I also understand such a thing, and my boss, Tim Needs, our CEO, is a Brit. We were joking yesterday that it's nice to be in a civilized country that knows that Z is how you pronounce the letter. Z just happens to rhyme, and that's not the right way to do it. But it's very exciting to be here, and it's exciting to be a part of something like this with Telstra. We at vArmour have been working on some pretty interesting problems for a little while. I think Marcus touched on some of them. But what I thought I might do is talk a little bit about how the company got to where we are now, what our customers have told us, and the sort of problems that we've been helping people solve, and then maybe a little bit about where we think we're going to go, both globally as well as within the Australian marketplace, which I think then becomes a great transition over to our friends at Telstra. So vArmour has been at this for a little while. We were founded in 2011. The first sort of year and a half of the company was really about building up the core technology and building up the core team. Our two founders, as Marcus pointed out, are original people from NetScreen. And NetScreen, for those who are familiar with that company, was the combination of security and networking coming together for the first time. And they really re-architected how people think about security in order to make security go much, much faster than it had before. Well, when Michael and Roger, our founders, got together and said, hey, this cloud thing looks like it's going to kind of be a bit of a big deal, we might need to do security differently in that vein. And so they think of vArmour as the coming together of security and cloud. Not just how do I take security and stick it into the cloud context, but how do I use what cloud is and the new architectures that it enables in order to do security differently and do it better. And that was what founded the company. So during that period of time when we were building out the original tech, we spent a lot of time with some very large global customers, both in the enterprise space and in the telco space, to help coach us on what their problems were as they approached cloud. And it was the continuing theme of what Marcus said, where the need to go to cloud was driven consistently by two things. One, a drive for increased agility and moving new products, technologies, applications into the market faster to help drive the overall business. And second, a way of realigning a cost structure and taking IT and making it something that was much more of a utility and not having quite so much excess there. And so that caused us to say, all right, how are we going to help people do both of those things? Securely bring new applications into the cloud faster without creating undue cost structures. We looked at the existing solutions that were in the market, and almost all of them were based on this idea of a perimeter, traditional firewall style approaches to security. And that didn't really make sense to us for really two primary reasons. First off, all of those models were very hardware-centric, and hardware and the cloud don't mix. The cloud is a transition to software. It's a transition to new on-demand models. So we had to push hardware aside and go down a different route. The second reason that they didn't make sense to us was less about technology and more about business. The business has become so much more interconnected. People have relationships with partners, with customers, with suppliers, sometimes with competitors. And the application fabric, the IT fabric, has evolved to be that level of interconnection. this idea of a perimeter, that there was some fixed location where I could have good guys on one side and bad guys on the other, was outdated. It didn't fit the way businesses operate. So we needed an architecture that blew up the traditional idea of a perimeter while still enabling people to be secure as they approach cloud. So perimeter-centric views didn't make sense to us. We talked with our customers about an alternative approach of agents. Right? This is the idea that I take a piece of software and I stick it inside the workloads that I'm trying to protect. Agents have been around for a long time, seemed like that might make sense in cloud. We talked to our customers and they consistently gave us feedback that agents as a primary strategy were not a very good way of approaching the security problem. And there were two reasons there as well. Number one, everybody has agent fatigue. Right? There are so many different pieces of software that I have to put inside an individual workload. They conflict with each other. I have an ongoing certification challenge, an ongoing management challenge. I don't need yet another agent. First problem. The second problem is, as a primary security control, some would question using an agent-oriented approach to get there. And what I mean by that is, in the olden days, technology and security was really about prevention. I want to stop getting attacked. But today, that's unrealistic. Everybody is going to get attacked at some point. The bad guys are going to get in. The question is, when they get in, however they get in, what are you going to do about it? If the thing you're relying on to protect yourself is inside the thing that you're trying to protect, the first thing the bad guys are going to do when they get in is turn that off. You need a set of controls that give you that same sort of individual workload-centric view, but are independent from it. And that's really what caused us to build the architecture that is today's vArmour technology. It's a third way, what we call a distributed system. Distributed systems are not new as an architecture. It's frankly the foundation of how clouds are built. Take big things, turn them into small things, and then horizontally scale them out through software. And that's what we do. We take security, we move it down next to the individual things you're trying to protect, and we wrap them up in their own individual, what you might call micro perimeter, or a micro segmentation. That allows us to move that trust boundary, that point where you're deciding good is on one side and bad is on the other, and move it down to the individual workload. It's never been done before. And that's really what we spent that first year and a half of building out the company and taking the product in the marketplace to do. From there, we then launched the company. We launched the company in 2014. Tim Eads, our CEO, and I were literally wandering around in New York City, going and talking to journalists when the Home Depot breach announcement happened. It's not a bad time to be launching a security startup company when that kind of a breach is in the news. So we spent a lot of time talking with customers and partners as we put the product into the market. What's happened since then over that first year is really understanding and building out the problems that we solve for people. As Marcus mentioned, the product is now deployed in critical infrastructure all over the world. We're deployed in some of the largest financial services companies in the world. Problem statement that was said to me by one of the largest banks based in the UK. They said, look, our problem we realized one day was that we had unacceptable risk inside our environment. We're based in the UK. Someone could go into one of our branch offices in South Africa and directly access a data center in Singapore. Unacceptable risk. I can't see that. If something bad is going on, I can't react to it. I need to control that risk. We're deployed in government and utility organizations around the world. So our technology protects critical infrastructure like defense, like utilities, like electrical grids, helping protect those systems from attack. We're deployed in service providers around the world, friends of ours like Telstra in other markets. But one that is near and dear to my heart is we're deployed in healthcare providers. And healthcare, I think, is perhaps one of the most interesting examples of a vertical that desperately needs to access cloud-style technologies, but fundamentally has some severe challenges as they do it. Healthcare worldwide, of course, is becoming a digital business. Right? Electronic medical records are the way in which, are an anchor part of the strategy to reduce costs while still driving up patient care in that industry. We're deployed in one healthcare provider environment where they put us in a visibility mode, as Marcus pointed out, and we immediately saw foreign nation-state actors actively engaged inside that environment. And the challenge these guys have is fundamentally, they don't have the in-house people or skills in order to fully protect their environment. They need help from technology companies like vArmour, and they need technology or help from security experts like Telstra. There was another healthcare company that we've been working with that is in an interesting state of consolidation. They have 15 different data centers across 5 different health institutions. That cost is just unacceptably high. They need ways of reducing costs as the cost of healthcare rise worldwide, while increasing the overall level of patient satisfaction and the level of security that they provide. What we're helping them do is compress those 15 data centers down to 3, which means you've got more information commingling than you've ever had before. But using vArmour, they can secure those different pieces together and maintain compliance while still driving down costs. So that, I think, really takes us to where we are today. First part of the company, as I said, was building out people and technology. The second part was really getting our first sets of customers, the anchor go-to-market. What's next for us now is really scaling. So we announced this morning from vArmour that we just finished raising a round in which Telstra Ventures very graciously participated of $41 million. That basically doubles the amount of money that we've raised to date. The round more than tripled the valuation of vArmour. It is a time where financially many companies are struggling to raise money, whereas we were very fortunate that we were able to do that and do so in a way that was significantly impactful. And I think the reason for that, I would tie back to Marcus's point before I hand over, is that security is extremely important. Right? It has never been more relevant for organizations to protect their critical assets. All of those industries that I mentioned are all going through a digitization process. All of them are taking traditional business processes that used to be run by people and paper, and they are turning them into electronic systems. Those systems are vulnerable to attack. We need new approaches and new technologies in order to help people make that transition into a digital environment. And that's where I think go-to-market partners and technology partners like Telstra, coupled with new technology suppliers like vAmour, are really going to be helpful in that transition. So I will pass it over to Jeremy.
I think we need Craig.
We need Craig
Sorry, got
first.
2 people,
Excellent.
both.
My role at Telstra is the Director of the Security Practice, and that looks at how we actually take these kind of technologies to market with our customers and to actually solve unique point solutions within customer environments. I think cloud's a really interesting one for us in the sense that we have all of our customers either building private infrastructure clouds or they're actually going out to public clouds. And one of the key challenges they have is how do we actually maintain consistency of the way we enforce our policy and our security, both within our premises but also when we go to a public provider, and to do so in a way that's repeatable and simple to deploy and manage. And I think this is really where the interest for us actually looking into the micro-segmentation space and specifically with vAmour came from. Now, Telstra doesn't jump into these kind of investments half-heartedly. So from a ventures perspective, there's a lot of due diligence put around the business and around how to select perform in market and where the opportunities lie. But we also do some significant analysis internally around our internally within my team and also in Jeremy's team around our centres of excellence who actually look at the technology from the ground up, actually see where it fits within the market, throw as much ugly workload and nastiness as they possibly can at the platform, but also at the same time to actually try and figure out where it might actually fit in the market in terms of the addressable market from a market segment view, but also maybe from an industry vertical view as well. And this stuff's really important within Telstra when we actually try and take these into market, trying to actually identify where the opportunities lie, but also at the same time trying to make sure that when we actually take it out for our customers, they can consume it in a simple and easy and repeatable fashion. Now, vAmour is a really interesting one for us because it doesn't just play in one of those industry verticals and doesn't play in just in one of those market segments. If you've got a customer in our world who's got a VMware deployment, or they're running KVM, or they've got a workload that's on AWS, this will work across all of those. Now, that's a nice thing to have. It's sort of the mid-market to actually make sure it's applicable and they can actually deploy it. But as customers grow and as they become more sophisticated in the use of cloud technologies and the like, this is where some real opportunity exists for the customer not to have to change the way they do things. So I think the best way to look at this is if we look at our traditional firewall vendors and their approach to actually securing the data center. They take a virtual instance of their firewall and they run it there, and then you have to then route all the traffic through this device. Now that creates bottlenecks, it creates issues with how we actually might want to route traffic through the environment, but also at the same time it doesn't really give us a level of flexibility so that if we actually move workload, the policy actually goes with the workload. And I think this is really sort of some really unique things that vArmour brings to the table for us. We're expecting to have some real significant pull-through with particularly our larger accounts who are already fairly sophisticated in their use of cloud, who are actually dealing with these challenges, trying to understand how their east-west traffic flows are actually functioning, but also at the same time trying to make sure that they actually secure their network in a way that gives them the highest level of visibility into what's actually going on in their infrastructure. Jeremy, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that from the product lens for you?
I will, and I'll be quick, not only because most of it's been said, but more than 2 minutes standing is agony at the minute. Look, from our perspective, so I run the product team, security product team, and our networking product team. We're really excited about the vArmour investment and the strategic partnership that we can embark on, because this sort of offering and solution is really critical to our strategy. So many of you will be aware our cloud strategy really is one around multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, and so we have a range of solutions, both public cloud and private cloud. Our partnerships with nearly all of the global public cloud infrastructure providers, and soon will be all of them. And the reason we're doing that is customers are coming to us saying they're not choosing one cloud, and they're not choosing. They're not just choosing public cloud, they're choosing private cloud and public cloud, but they're also choosing multiple public cloud providers as they distribute workloads to the sort of cloud of their sphere, if you like. And so when we talk to customers about that shaped our cloud strategy initially around being a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud provider. But when we talk to customers about that, there are two things that they want to know about and want us to help them with as a service provider. One is the network. Don't be surprised to hear that the network isn't as easy as plugging a blue cable into a rack. It's quite complex in terms of being able to do initial migrations, get all of the configs and addressing right. So we're helping them with the network side of things, and that's probably pretty core to our heritage. But the second one is security, and particularly security across multi-cloud and hybrid cloud deployments. Not only are they nervous about it, but to Craig's point in particular, they're worried about the complexity of it in an increasingly complex and hybrid IT kind of architecture and deployment that they're going down. So, as I said, this is really important to our strategy, really important to Telstra in terms of us adding value as a cloud provider and adding value as a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud provider, not just providing cloud services, but as I said, the network and the security layers are really fundamentally important to us. So, as I said, between Marcus and Keith in terms of this investment, it is very strategic for us, and we're really excited about it. So, thanks for coming.